Firefly is a 5-star fire destruction Stellaron hunter who was released on 2024/6/19 and has remained one of the top break units in HSR since then, especially seeing a revival with the introduction of the Dahlia, who is a 5-star fire nihility like Fugue, who pairs really well with Firefly. Now, I don't have Dahlia. Firefly still plays extremely well. And, lucky for any owners of Fire Waifu, she is getting a buff in patch 4.2, much like we've seen with both Sparkle and Black Swan this patch. As they've seen a resurgence, Black Swan is way better if you summon for her. Sparkle was already pretty good. They buffed her. Yay. And so it's like, how would I buff Firefly or Fire Waifu in Honkaistarrail? Well, to start, Firefly has an enhanced skill after using her ultimate, which becomes an AoE blast that restores HP by an amount equal to 20% of Firefly's max HP, applies fire weakness to a designated enemy, lasting for 2 turns, dealing fire damage, and break effect to enemies, okay, equal to a certain amount of attack. When she breaks an enemy, she gets to attack again, or do a follow-up attack sort of sorts. I would make it to where her skill lasts for 3 turns, and I'd also increase the super break damage, or make it to where with each AoE skill she lands, she builds up super break damage for her next ultimate and her next skill, or something like that. Firefly's ultimate increases her break efficiency by 50%. I'd raise that up to 65%. I think that'd be good. Granted, mine isn't at 10, but we can see the next level it would become 50% still. I'd raise that up to about 65. Weakness break efficiency by 65% is what I'd say. I would also make it to where her technique also lasts for an extra turn. We see leaps into the air and moves about freely for 5 seconds, which can be ended early by plunging the attack. When the duration ends, plunges and immediately attacks all enemies within a set area at the start of each wave, applying fire weakness to all enemies for 2 turns, then dealing fire damage equal to 200% of Sam's attack to all enemies. So you have to be in her ultimate. That's when Sam comes out. I would still increase this to 3 turns and increase the fire damage equal to 250% of Sam's attack. Hell, why not let's make Sam a damn memo sprite while we're talking? No, I'm kidding. But that 250 and the extra attack, I think that'd be pretty good. You don't need the Dahlia. That's pretty good. I don't feel like I need the Dahlia. And, she's pretty cracked. But then, when we get to talking about Firefly a little bit more, there's very few relic sets we can use on the break units in the game in general at this moment. The main one being Forge of Calpagni Lantern and Iron Cavalry against the Scourge. Well, the 2-piece for Forge of Calpagni Lantern increases the wearer's speed by 6%. When the wearer hits an enemy target that has fire weakness, the wearer's break effect increases by 40%, lasting for 1 turn. Maybe buff this to 2 turns. Just buff all break effect units in that aspect, including Firefly, which would be nice, right? We then look at the Iron Cavalry against the Scourge. Increase break effect by 16%. Let's just round it up to 20%. And the 4-piece, if the wearer break effect is over 150% or higher, the break damage dealt to the enemy target ignores 10%. Let's go ahead and raise that to 15% of their defense. If the wearer's break effect is 250 or higher, the super break damage dealt to the enemy target additionally ignores 15% of their defense. Let's raise that to 25% of their defense. Once you break a unit, break units don't really do damage, so they need that extra defense reduction, in my opinion. Buffing this to 20, 25, 24% additionally, and from 10 to 15%, I think, would buff not just Firefly, but all break units in general in the game. Especially when you take into consideration, Rappa was overshadowed by Fire Waifu, literally on every level. And so I do think buffing break squads across the board would be nice. Maybe buff her break effect scaling, right? We have 265 break on our Firefly. Granted, we also have her signature light cone, which we ain't even got into, and this makes it to where it increases the wearer's break effect by 60%. I think just buffing it to 75%. Honestly, I think a good 10, 15 to 20% across the board on all these percent breaks are pretty good. When the wearer deals break damage to an enemy target, inflicts routed on the enemy lasting for 2 turns, targets afflicted with routed receive 24% increased break damage from the wearer, and their speed is lowered. Let's just make it 24% increased damage, I think. Once again, break effect units need that increased damage. If we don't want to just make it damage, I'm increasing the break effect to at least 30% right here. The increased break effects damage, I'm increasing to 30% and lowering their speed by 35% instead of 20. It says effects of the same type cannot be stacked. I think with break units, effects of the same type should be able to be stacked. There's all these different ways to make break units better. I'm going to say this now. This boss right here on Nodes 2 makes it seem like everyone needs a buff besides the squad we used, okay? I don't know what the devs were on when they made this boss. They literally just made a boss to counter all shields. Hey, why not make it to where Firefly gets a fire shield after she does this, and so she gets a little bit more defense and becomes a little more tanky in battle also for, say, 1 or 2 turns. I think that would be cool. Then that would make it to where you don't need, right, that would give you a little bit more cushion to where you don't need a sustain on a breaker team like a lot of us feel you do at this point in time. I feel if you gave Firefly, she does this, bam, enters battle, gets a nice little fire or 365 shield all around her, no damage. No damage. I think that would be cracked. She gets a little bit of permanencer in her. I think that would be cracked. And then every time she breaks a unit, maybe every time she super breaks a unit, she could replenish a bit of that shield back. I do think that would be lit. I think that would be a pretty nice buff to a destruction fire unit who is known for surviving, doing massive AoE damage, and that type of stuff. I do hope y'all enjoyed this video. Let me know y'all's thoughts in the comments down below on what you think of these ideas for Firefly buffs in 4.2. Let us hear some of your ideas. Appreciate y'all stopping by, giving me some time out of y'all's day. Peace out. I'll see you later.